Morning, Facebook people. Today's discussion is about Edwin Brock. Five Ways to Kill a Man. That's one of the most powerful and outstanding poems that I read in my early years when I was going to high school. I believe that it's powerful because it have a lot of life's teachings. Um, The poet Edwin Brock is often considered as a poem against war, right? And whereas in fact the poem is about the loss of humanity. But I don't really want to give you too much details. I will just read about the poem and then you draw your own conclusion, your own inferences. All right? So I will say we can get in touch with this poem by downloading it, or so we can get this poem and then we can have a discussion further. All right. Five Ways to Kill a Man. And then I would explain it to you after I read it. All right. It's loading, so I have to take a time for it to come up. All right, it's here. Five Ways to Kill a Man. I believe Edward Brock died in 1992. He was an excellent poet. Let's go into it now. There are many cumbersome ways to kill a man. You can make him carry a plank of wood to the top of a hill and nail him to it. To do this properly, you require a crowd of people wearing sandals, a cock that crows, a cloak to dissect, a sponge, some vinegar, and one man to hammer the nails home. Or you can take a length of steel, shaped and chiseled in a traditional way, and attempt to pierce the metal cage he wears. But for this, you need white horses, English tree, men with bows and arrows, at least 2 flags, a prince and a castle to hold your banquet in. Dispensing with nobility, you may, if the wind allows, blows gas at him. But then you need a mile of mud sliced through the ditches, not to mention black boots, bombs, craters, more mud, a plague of rats, a dozen of songs, and some round hats made of steel. In an age of aeroplanes, you may fly miles above the victim and dispose of him by pressing a small switch. All then you require a much is an ocean to separate you. 2 systems of government, a nation, scientists, several factors, a psychopath, and lands that no one need for several years. These are, as I began, cumbersome ways to kill a man. Simpler, direct, much more neat is to see that he is living somewhere in the middle of the 20th century and leave him there. So this poem is basically touching. Some people, they might not understand the intricacies and the deeper meaning behind this poem. I can explain it by going through each I'm going to go through each one of these stanzas and explain further about this poem. Alright. There are many cumbersome ways to kill a man. You can make him carry a plank of wood to the top of the hill and nail him to it. To do this properly, you require a crowd of people wearing sandals, a cock that crows, a cloak to dissect, a sponge, some vinegar, and one man to hammer the nails. That right there is telling you about the biblical times with Jesus. The crucifixion and so forth, and the way they treated him, and the sponge and to sop up the blood and so forth, and the cross and the man to hammer the cross down. You understand? That's basically the crucifixion of Christ. If you want to kill a man, you can't just crucify him. Just string him up. You understand? And the second way you can do it now is you can take a length of steel, shape and chiseled in the traditional way, and attempt to pierce the metal cage he wears. But this you need white horses, English trees, men with bows and arrows, and at least flags, prince and castle to hold your banquet in. Alright, these times are considered the medieval times, when you have kings, queens, monarchs of sovereignty, and all of these kind of people, dukes and everybody that basically fight to conquer, to win over countries and so forth. So the banquet, when they celebrate their victory, with big feast. You understand? So in order to carry out that, they use the main items of weaponry was like spears, bow and arrows and sword, and swords and knights. You understand, with horses and so forth. So they are telling you about the medieval times. So as I'm explaining, we are going through a timeline. You understand? We're going through a timeline as I am explaining. So keep that in mind. And the next step is dispensing with nobility. You may, if the wind allows, blow gas at him, but then you need a mile of mud sliced through ditches, not to mention black boots, bombs, craters, more mud, a plague of rats, a dozen songs, and some round hats made of steel. This timeline now is suggesting World War One. You understand? And these are the means that they fight. They fight in ditches. They dig out the ground, and they fight that way and throw all kind of hazardous stuff at their enemies. So this is basically, and they fought in infested areas. There was a lot of rats, and they sing a lot of songs and all of that. So it's just basically the World War One time period. And this now, in an age of airplanes, you may fly miles above your victims, dispose of him by pressing a small switch. All then require is an ocean that separates you, system of government, and a nation scientists, several factories, psychopaths, and lands that no one requires for several years. I believe this time period is, I'm not sure, is the bombing of Japan. I believe it's the bombing of Japan. When you have two persons, two government, and they have differences, and they just bomb each other. the Pearl Harbor incident, and so you have some psychopath as it regards to the chemical warfare, poisonous gases and so forth, so they will go through any means necessary to win a war. As I mentioned before, and finally, in concluding, there are another one, as I begin, cumbersome ways to kill a man, simple, more direct, and much more neat is to see that he is living somewhere in the middle of the 20th century and leave him there. That suggestion now. Out of all of the cumbersome ways that I mentioned, in no time, you don't have to do a man nothing. Just leave him out there. You don't have to touch him because there's so many things. If you leave him out there, AIDS, right? Diabetes, hypertension, all kind of chronic illnesses is out there to get him. So you don't have to touch nobody, you just leave them. That shows us that we are living in a dangerous time. Nobody is safe in modern times. At least you know the danger back then. And you know who's the kind of persons that are dangerous. But in modern times like now, danger is among you. There are a lot of persons who are among you and so forth, and you don't know that they are sexual predators and so forth. You understand? So we are living in a more dangerous time than then. That's the moral of the story. So that's it. Tell me by commenting, and I'll see if I can get this on YouTube. I am trying to be a vlogger and so forth. I'm just trying to make corrections as I go by and so forth, see if I can get better.